Hello, and welcome to episode 26 of the Vibrant Dice podcast. I am your host, Rebecca. If you are new, welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorry about that bump. I will try not to move the camera again. And if you are a returning viewer, I am glad you're back. I'm always glad you're back. I like this podcast thing, and I like the community that we're building with it. You can find me on Engineers Falcon, as Engineers Falcon, on Instagram and on Ravelry. And you can search for Vibrant Dice Podcast to find our group, which you need to be a member of because we're doing contesty stuff this year, and it's really fun. And you should hop over there and join some of that. Speaking of contests, we had our first giveaway from a vendor. Knitting Geisha sent me this needle minder to give away when I ordered something from her. She sent one for you guys too, and it is adorable. And we had 7 entries for that, 2 through 8, which, if you're like in really big groups, that doesn't sound like very many. But for my little new group, that's a lot. That's good feedback. So we rolled an 8-sided die, and the engineer rolled it for me, and it was number 8, which is Little Pixels. So congratulations. If you will give me PM me your address, I will get this in the mail to you. It's the first time she's won anything on my podcast, so I thought that was pretty cool. I'm wearing my whippoorwill today. I did this a couple of years ago. A friend and I were knitting along together. It was my first shawl, my first big anything to knit, and I love it. It's in something Knit Pixie. No clue. I don't even know if I put this up on Rav. I am horrible at that Rav thing, just so you know. Projects and stuff, if you go to see what I've knit and spun, I'm not good at that at all. I'm sorry. Maybe I will work on it this year, maybe not. I make no promises. Peaks and pitfalls. What is going on this week that is awesome? My biggest peak for the week is I got a Kindle Voyage. That's the cover. The case was on sale for like $16, marked down from like $50. And then it is the teeny tiniest, lightest thing you've ever seen. I was the first person in our family to get a Kindle, so I had a very brand new, no one even knew what an e-reader was, first generation Kindle. And a couple years later, when they released, I think it was a Kindle, it was either the 2 or the 3. It still wasn't the paper white. It was none of the fancy stuff. It didn't have its own light or in backlit or anything. So I had one of those, and then all my family got paper whites. And I thought about getting a new one, and I kind of wavered. And then I started hoarding Amazon money in case I wanted to buy one. And then when I was going through my Amazon money, I found the gift card that my grandmother, who passed away last January, gave me the Christmas before she passed away, a few weeks before she passed away. And so she was an avid reader, a big fan of reading. And so I thought that would be an appropriate use to do with my last Christmas present from her. So the money I had hoarded and the money she'd given me went to getting that, and it was out of stock when I ordered it. I ordered it right after the new year, but it is here now, and I have loved it. I've been reading on the Kindle app on my iPad, and it's just not the same. The iPad is bigger and bulkier and harder to tote around, and if I take it to read, there's nowhere to hide it in the car, and I don't want to leave an iPad laying in my car, so I have to bring it in with me, and blah, 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 blah. I like the little tiny light Kindle, and I love having the screen. I don't know if it's called paper white on this one. Whatever it is on the Kindle Voyage, I really like it. I've really been impressed with it. So that's my peak, pitfalls. This pitfall is actually a couple months old, but I have just now gotten to the point where I'm ready to talk about it. If you've been watching the podcast for a while, you will recognize these. These are my socks for 10. The design is by Java Pearl, Cece. She is co-host with her daughter Damaris of the Geeky Girls podcast. And I love these socks. And if you remember, they took me ages and ages and ages to knit. And these are the socks where I learned that I like. These were my experiment socks where I did one sock with the regular stockinette bottom. And I did one in reverse stockinette to see if the reverse stockinette felt better on my feet, and they did. And I was able to shift a pattern adjust the pattern just a smidge so it would fit on my Fish Lips Kids heel sock that I like so very well. I mean, it's not mine. I didn't design it, but it's my favorite. And a little while ago, I was cleaning in the closet and I was sorting through yarn. I was looking for things to make Christmas gifts with right before Christmas, last minute things. And I was tossing stuff out, and I had this pair and another pair of socks that need to be washed, and so they were in a little pile that need to be washed. And I took them, sitting in the floor, I'm sitting right here, and right back here behind me is the bathroom counter. So I throw them over my shoulder to the bathroom counter to wash, because I'm going to wash them right there in that sink. My soak is right there. And when I emerge from the closet, I have thrown one of my socks into the Scentsy that was on and melted. So I now have a great big lump of very hard, very dark staining wax in my hand knit socks for 10 that I only got to wear 5 or 6 times. So this week, one of my projects is to rip these out, salvage as much of the yarn as I can, because this is fabulous yarn. This was Sherlock yarn from the Stockinette Kiki Yarn vs. Zombies, Geek of the Year Club. Year of the Geek Club. I'm saying it all backwards today. I'm trying to talk fast because the engineer has taken the Geeklings to refill our bottles of water, and when they get home, it's game night, so I'm trying to get everything in before then. So reclaiming this yarn so I can do something else beautiful with it. And it is right in the middle of the foot. Like there's no salvaging it. And it is hard as rock, and it's all like it's a mess. It won't lay flat anymore. It's all waxed together. So that's the first time I've ruined one of my hand knits. So there you have it. That's my pitfall. What is in the Mountain of Concord things this week? Oh my goodness, I had so much fun spinning this week. So I have 2 things that will eventually be in the shop. Bluebonnet Fibers on Etsy. There is nothing up in the shop. There will not be for a little while. I'm trying to get enough stuff together so I can post 5 or 6 or 10 things all at the same time. And also I'm working on my pricing structure. That's been a hard spot for me because I haven't really known how to do it and how I want to do that. And I want to be competitive, but I don't want to sell my stuff cheap and not pay myself. So the engineer I've been working out how we're going to handle that. So once I have that done, and once I have a few more things for the shop, I will put stuff up. This is Electra. It's what was on the wheel last week. I am in love with this. These purples and grays and whites and a few blacks. Oh, red hair. Red-headed girl must have spun that. It is probably one of my prettiest spins. I don't have yardage on it yet. Of course, I'll have all that before I put it up in the shop, but just to show you that it's finished, I don't need to have all the yardage and stuff. And then I started this colorway that didn't have a name. This was dyed by the Electra's Fat Cat Knits. I don't think, you know what, I don't know. I don't know if it was a one-of-a-kind. It might actually be one of her regular colorways that you can reorder. Don't quote me on that, but I think that is a regular colorway. This one was dyed, the fiber for this was dyed by Created for LCB, created by LCB. Wow, the mouth is not working today right. It's probably the brain. It's probably the brain that's not working as well today. It's been a long 3 days. The engineer looked at the chore chart tonight and he said, "Is it really only Wednesday?" And I was like, "It is really only Wednesday." But this was a one-of-a-kind. It did not have a name. I named it A Little Bit of Summer, and I showed some of the fiber on the wheel on Instagram. And Christine, KDLB, she's the host of the Yarnings podcast. If you do not watch her, you need to. She's great. She is so sweet, and she is so funny. She's so sweet. I just love her to death, and I really enjoy her podcast. She's a lot geeky. So we have that in common. We have been Instagram friends and game friends for a long time on Instagram, talking about games and stuff and fiber. So she's a sweetheart. So she said, oh, that totally looks poolside. And then I fell in love with poolside. So now this is poolside. Um, it is not as meticulous as Electra. I'm calling these refresher spins. They will be priced a little less because they cost me less time. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this yarn. It is fabulous, but I did not meticulously measure it out. I didn't pull out the little card. I checked the width of these all the way through. When I did the wraps per inch on this, I measured it in 5 places. In every place, it was between 14 and 15 wraps per inch. This one's a little less consistent. It ranged from 14 to 16 over 5 places. So not quite as consistent. And obviously less yardage because it's, no. This one was 10, 11, 11, 10 wraps per inch. This one was 14 to 16 wraps per inch. So I did not meticulously measure it out, so it took me half as long to spin. So it will be priced a little less in the shop because it was not that hard. What else is in my Mountain of Conquered Things? This is a slightly older, right before Christmas or beginning of January Mountain of Conquered Thing. This is The Magician King by Lev Grossman. I loved this book. It is adult. It's not YA. I've read a lot of YA in the last couple of years. One, because I have kids coming up to YA here in the next couple of years, and so I want to kind of be ahead of them on what's cool and popular to read at that age. But also because there's a lot of good middle school and YA out there. A lot of it. And so I've been reading a lot of that. But this one's from the grown-up section, and it was definitely a little more grown-up. It's more languagey. There's some sexual references in it. It's a little more violent. Not excessively. None of that was to excess. But I would not have handed this to my 13 or 14-year-old. But I loved it. I thought it was really good. It starts with a young man in the real world ending up in Magic College. And it is definitely more grown up and darker than things like Harry Potter, but in a really good way. So this is in my Mountain of Conquered Things. What else is in my Mountain of Conquered Things this week besides 2 skeins of spun yarn and a book? 2 more books. One of them I read on the Kindle. It is Scarlet by Marissa Meyer, right here. It is the 3rd in a series. The first one is called Cinder. They are YA. Cinder is the story of Cinderella. It's a retelling of, they're a fairy tale retell. Cinder is Cinderella, and she is a cyborg teenage girl. And so it follows with a lot of really fun and interesting twists. They're fast-paced. They're not very long. Great books. So I'd finished Cinder end of last year, and this is Scarlet, who is Red Riding Hood. And then tomorrow I will be starting, or maybe tonight at bedtime, I will be starting Cress, which is the 3rd book in the series. There is a novella that is about to come out that is about they're all connected, same plot line, but it's about a different character. They're all about different characters, but it's about the evil queen. And then sometime in 2015, I think book 4 in the actual, that's like a novella. That one is a novella. The book 4 in the actual series that's coming out is, I think, called Winter. And I'm looking forward to that. So, I guess that would be Base Camp. Cress is in Base Camp. I'm trying to remember. I finished another book called How to Knit a Love Song. I listened to it on Audible. It was a lot of fun. It is by, I'm bringing up Audible so I can see, Rachel Herron. It is the first in a series, I think, the Cypress Hollow. It's knitting shop, romancy, sweet. It's the first audiobook with, I guess, naughty bits that I had ever listened to. And so that was, I skim a lot of that when I read. And so it was kind of interesting to listen to out loud. And it was definitely not one I could listen around the kids. It was pretty languagey. And so, but I enjoyed it. I will probably continue that series on Audible. I enjoyed the narrator very much, and I thought it was a sweet story. It was sweet and fun and light, and I did a lot of spinning, a lot of knitting and spinning earlier in the year when I listened to it. It seems like I'd finished something else, but I don't know what. So I guess if I did and I have forgotten, I will fill you in later. So we have done Peaks and Pitfalls. We have done Mountain of Conquered Things, Climbing the Mountain. I am still working on my sock, but I am getting very close on it. Come here, little yarn pole. I am using Heart Crusher, dyed by Cyborg's Craft Room. I have got my fish lip kiss heel in, and I posted a picture after I got my heel in night before last, or last night. I guess it was just last night. Oh my goodness. A lot has happened in the last couple days. And I got some questions about how I knit my socks. So I thought I would spend just a minute talking to you about what I do when I knit socks. I am a huge fan of Socks Therapist's Fish Lips Kiss Heel pattern. It is a heel method, but she also, the pattern is $1. It is 16 pages. Don't let that scare you away. It's just a lot of information. I read it all and enjoyed it all. She talks about how she came up with this heel and why this heel works, and kind of how the construction works, and a lot of things that I had never thought about knitting a sock heel before. So I use, there's a process in there for making a template of your foot or for whoever you're knitting for, and then custom fitting each sock to that foot. And I use that religiously, and I'm so very pleased with the way my socks fit. And when I knit for my sister, hers fit every time. And so this was just a vanilla sock because of the self-striping. But I use her method for the toe and for knowing when to stop the toe. And then either I can tweak. So far, any pattern I've wanted to tweak, like Java Pearls, this, I think I had to take out one stitch to make it fit, the pattern fit my actual foot, instead of just, because the number of stitches I end up with the needle doesn't always match the pattern I'm using. And then, but I didn't have to do any of that this time because it's just vanilla. But I cannot stand, and it used to not bother me, but I cannot stand the backside of stockinette on my foot. So when I get to the foot part, I do the toe completely normal. So it is knit in the round, normal, just knit with the increases. When I get to the foot, I knit on the front side or put the pattern in. And then on the back, I purl. I was scared that this was going to make my socks take forever, because I am not a fast sock knitter to begin with. People who have been watching from the beginning can tell you, if you're new, that these socks were on my needles for like 3 months. Forever. I'm very slow at socks. I can whip out, 12 ounces of yarn in a week, but I can knit a sock in a month and a half. So, when I first started purling the bottoms, one, I was afraid it was going to add a lot of time. It does not. It does not make my sock that much longer than it did before. And two, I ended up with some ladders, and I didn't like the way it looked. So I knit, and then I knit the first 2 stitches, purl, and knit the last 2 stitches. Oh, the Geeklings and the Engineer are back. Hello, Geeklings and Engineer. And then I continue that all the way down the foot. I stop when the Fish Lips Kiss pattern says to stop. And then, if you're doing this, you need to knit once around before you start the heel. Because if you have purl stitches that you are working into, the Fish Lips Kiss heel short row method does not work. So knit around all the way around, and then I put the heel in exactly according to her instructions. And then I knit until the pattern says stop, and then I put the ribbing on and I am done. So either knit around, or again, if it's a foot pattern, I continue the foot pattern up. This time I have to say, on the first sock, and I didn't bring it in here, on the first sock, because I wanted the stripes to be consistent, I stopped, I pulled the yarn from the center and I put the heel in with the yarn from the middle of the ball. This did not add as much work as my dramatic brain thought it was going to. It was not a big deal at all. And then I continued on so that my stripe pattern would match in the front. I did not this time, and I have to say, I am so impressed with this yarn because you can't even tell. The stripe pattern didn't get messed up putting the heel in. I am so tickled. But this fits my heel so much better than any gusset or flap I have ever done. And I don't get any little holes. I don't have any trouble with it at all. So that is a little bit about how I do my socks for those who were curious. And it does look kind of wonky here, but on my foot, they look gorgeous. They look really cool with the, I think they look really cool with the reverse stockinette on the bottom. Let me see if I can find that picture I Instagrammed last night. I don't love Instagram on my iPad. It is, oh, and I'm not even logged in. That's how much I don't love it. And I do not have my phone here, so I'm sorry, no pictures. Ducks in a row. Oh, there's one more thing, climbing the mountain. I finished everything I was going to spin, so I had a little bit of some blues that Yarn vs. Zombies dyed for, again, that same Year of Geekery Fiber Club, Year of the Geek Fiber Club. I'd used part of this braid of fiber to do something else with. And so I took the little bit that was left tonight after the engineer got home. I did all of this while the engineer cooked dinner, and he and the kids did chores. They let me spin. So I did both of these singles in an hour and a half. I was so pleased. An hour and 26 minutes, I think. I was so pleased with myself. And I measured with the control card as I went, and I stayed at 22 to 24 wraps per inch all the way through. And so I apply these. So playing this little sky, because these pretty sky colors, and it's like just a little, it's half a braid, or maybe a little less than half a braid. So that is everything that's climbing the mountain. Ducks in a row. I have to tell you about this experiment in throwing out all my lists. I love it. I was so sad at the beginning of the year to throw my to-do lists away because, one, I liked to be able to prove what I had done in the day. I like to be able to look back and say, oh, look at everything I accomplished. And then I think that in the back of my mind, I also kind of liked beating myself up when I didn't, which is kind of sad. It's not a very nice way to treat yourself. But I think I really believed that if I felt bad enough about not getting all those things done and kept looking at them there haunting me, that maybe I would get on them faster. That's not a good way to treat yourself either. So, throwing the to-do lists away. One has taught me that I don't have to have proof of what I've done. I know what I've accomplished. My family knows what I've accomplished. We've accomplished a lot of things together, and it's nobody else's business. Not that the Georgia police have ever knocked on my door and said, show me what you did today. But kind of thought that they might be out there just waiting to jump on me because, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. Which I don't believe, but I hear that a lot. Well, what do you do? Like I had a church leader one time when my children were 3 and 4 who said I could, take care of some stuff because all I did was stay at home with my kids. So I could be responsible for all of that stuff. And I believed him. I believed him that I was just a stay-at-home mom. So I don't have anything against working moms. I think you guys are awesome, and I admire you so much. I barely keep up with what I'm doing. So I think you guys are like way amazing. But I also think that there is no such thing as a just anything kind of woman. I don't think, or just anything kind of person. Oh, you're just an engineer. Oh, you're just a stay-at-home mom. I don't buy any of that anymore. Kind of careless what people think. Okay, so soapbox. Soapbox over. My apologies. I have been soapboxy all day. My poor family. I've soapboxed at my mom twice. She called twice. And I was just on my soapbox all day about everything. Sorry that spilled over into the podcast. But own who you are, own what you do, and be proud. Do your best work, and then let it be enough. There. So, at the end of every single day, I transfer what I need to from my to-do list to the next day's to-do list. So I've got a little to-do list right here in my binder. I jot over on the next day what I need to do, and then I wad it up and I throw it away. And at first, my husband had to throw it away because I was so addicted to saving all of my lists to prove to myself that I had done things. And so I was really sad that first couple of weeks. And now I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, I never will look at that list again. I'm done with it. And at the end of the week, I rip the weekly chore list out and I throw it away too. And it is way fun. Office list, again, into the week, things we need to do during our family office time. I transfer over to the new office list and throw it out. Done. I don't even want to look at those old things anymore, which is why the traditional bullet journal was not good for me, because it let me hoard my to-do lists, and I don't need to do that. It's very freeing to throw them away. So if you're a to-do list hoarder, experiment with not hoarding them. If you're not, then you don't have the same mental drama that I do, and that's awesome. So I guess that brings us to Gamerly News, where we talk about all the gaming news. Welcome. I am excited this week because we have done so much. Episode 24 contains tons of information about all the podcasts. About all of the contests. They are running for a year, so I will not repeat all that information for a year. But in our family's personal challenge to reach 365 games this year, we are at, on the 20th of the year, let me look, I'm looking at my journal, 25 games. We have played 25 games this year, and I am very excited for us. Very excited. A handful of those have been pairs. A handful of those have been One Night with the Ultimate Werewolf. But then we've played things like Mass and Mystics and Pathfinder and all sorts of stuff. So, tons of awesome. I am very excited about our hashtag Vibrant Dice contest that is going on. That is, anytime you game this year and you are gaming and doing something Fiber at the same time, you can hashtag it on Instagram, hashtag Fiber and AED Dice. And I will do drawings at the end of the month for one of those. Oh my goodness, you guys, there are like 35 pictures or something up on that. It is so cool. Oh, I did it again. I did the banging the table with my knee thing. Scoot back a little bit. Get my knees out of the way. Way awesome. I'm so excited, and I am loving seeing what everyone is playing. And if you don't use Instagram a whole lot and don't know about hashtags, if you see someone that has hashtagged that, you can click on the hashtag and it will bring up all the pictures of everything that has been hashtagged with that hashtag. Let me see how many times I can say hashtag in one paragraph. But you can see what everybody else is playing, and that has been awesome. We did not make any progress in our 2x2 by 12. That's played 2 new games, twice each. Either new to you or you haven't played in 2 years. And hashtag it, hashtag 2x2x12, 2x2 by 12, Fiber and Dice, 2x2 by 12. And again, people are hopping in on that. The point of that contest is to let you try new things, encourage you to try new things all year long. Whether you play them with a friend or you buy a new game or you play at a game shop, lots and lots of different avenues for picking up new games. We did not make any progress in that one. And then the other thing is 10 by 10 in 2015. That's to pick 10 games and play them 10 times each. And we played a game of Carcassonne. My first Carcassonne, oh no, that was last time because I talked about it. We played it right before I talked about it, so I would remember. So that's not new. We played Dungeons and Dragons. And I am our DM. And it is the best job ever. Oh my goodness, so much fun. Both the kids got into it. Charles had played when he was younger. But I had not played before. I'd watched the guys play, but I was way too shy to try to jump in. I would sit across the hall because we were allowed to go sit. The building was open, and in junior high and high school, we were allowed to go and sit outside the door of our first class before school started. So I would sit across from them, and they would play by the door to English, and I would sit across from them and pretend to read and really just watch them play because they were very fascinating. And I was a little nervous about being Dungeon Master because I've never played before, but I'm a storyteller. If you haven't caught on yet, I love to tell stories. And I'm good at managing things. And so it turned out Engineer would be perfectly capable, but he is very meticulous with rules. and to the point that I could see it slowing us down because he would be very meticulous, and it's a little easier for me to say, oh no, we'll just house rule that this time and we'll look it up later. So I had the most fun ever. We played for 2 hours. We got a quarter of the way through the first scenario. It took forever, but it was way fun. Part of that was learning about our characters and explaining how the game works to the kids, and then figuring out how the game works. And because the DM had never played before, she had to figure out how to roll for monsters and those kinds of things. All said and done, it was way fun, and we really enjoyed it. The 4 of us, our family, played, and the kids have been begging to play again. So, the only other thing we played on 10/10 in 2015 is My Little Pony, the collectible card game, and I will talk about that more in just a minute because that ties into Game of the Week, sort of. Game of the Week's a little different this week. I did want to tell you, for those who are joining along or interested in joining along, I've had some questions about how you're recording games. On one of the threads, and I will try to find it, Christine put a great article about a great post about getting started in BoardGameGeek.com. I've got something else to tell you. Just a minute. I will come back to it. I'm going to remember. I'm going to come back to it about Board Game Geek. But it is an online website. Obviously, it's an online website, not an offline website, where you can record all your gameplays. I may see if she and Charles, the engineer, will collaborate to put together a really good post about getting started on that, if that's something you're interested in doing. How I'm recording it, and I just thought I'd show you for those who are not interested in doing it online, my chart this year is very, very, very simple. It says 10/10 in 2015. I listed the 10 games we're playing. I put my alternate Machikoro here on the side. I put 10 dots. When we play, I color it in and date it. That's it. I did the same thing for 2x2 and 12. January, number 1, number 2, 2 dots over here to color in and date when I play them. So that's how I'm tracking it. The engineer has volunteered, and it will go up in the show notes, to make a printable chart very similar to mine if you just want to print something out and track it on paper. That might make it a lot easier for everybody. I still would like, as you build your list, for you to go and update your list on the boards, because that's the only way I will be able to keep up with who's doing what. There are too many individual posts for me to... I'm keeping up with everything that's hashtagged. I go in every couple days and add to my list of things that have been added to the hashtags that have been added, but there's no way I can keep up with everybody's lists. So if you will go in and put your lists on the appropriate thread in the group, I would love you forever. So, but he will put together a printable tracking sheet, and we will put links up to that everywhere, show notes and all that kind of stuff. Oh, show notes, www.bluebonnetfibers.com will give you all the show notes. I don't think I've told you guys the coolest news ever, and if I totally told you this earlier, I'm sorry. Pretend like it's new news for you. We have been talking about BoardGameGeek.com has a conference, a board game conference in Dallas every November, the week of my birthday. And for a few years now, it has been my dream to go to Board Game Geek Con, because it's only a few hours from us. And hello, awesome week of my birthday in November gift. The drawback is that no one under 12 is allowed on the floor, because it is not a kids convention. It's a teenage and adult convention, which I totally respect. But it's something we want to do as a family, so we have been putting it off. Not this year, not this November, but the next November. Both my kids will be 12. I'll have a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old. And so the plan is for my birthday that week to go do Board Game Geek Con as a family. And they announced that there is a family Board Game Geek Con Memorial Day weekend this year, when they announced it was last year. So we are going to Board Game Geek Con family. It is in Dallas. It is at, I don't remember. We will post all the information in the links, or you can Google Board Game Geek Conference, Family Conference 2015 and get more details. But if you decide to go, you don't have to have kids. It looks like they're setting up 2 tracks where there will be some stuff that's very family oriented, but they're still going to have some panels, games, whatever they do, that will just be teen and up. So It's not going to just be all, shoots and ladders and little kids. So if you end up deciding to go to that, please let me know. I would love to see you there. I would love to meet up with anybody who's going. We have some friends from Corpus Christi that I think are going to try to come. We haven't seen them since we moved, so I am so excited. So, Board Game Geek FamilyCon, yay! Yay, Dallas! So that brings me to the game of the week. And today I'm going to sort of do a review rather than explain how a game is played. And I'm going to talk about My Little Pony, the collectible card game. The first thing I'm going to do is talk about the difference between collectible card games and living card games. Collectible card games and trading card games work, as far as we can tell, pretty much the same way. You buy some kind of starter set. That is enough to get you started, to get you to be able to play the basics. And then you can buy booster packs that have random cards in them. And you can use those to trade with other people, trading card game, to collect, collectible card game, TCG and CCG. And you can use those to customize and build a personalized deck with stronger, better cards than what comes in the original deck. In My Little Pony, there are also cards that are unique to the theme decks. If you don't buy the theme deck, you can't get a few of the cards that are in here. So that's trading card games. That's My Little Pony, collectible card game, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, all of those, I don't know, I don't guess you have to buy a starter set, but most people buy a starter deck, then they buy boosters, and they customize their deck. And every year-ish, there's like a new set, a new theme, a new whatever that comes out so that it doesn't get stale and so that you can keep spending money on it. The other kind of game that we play in our house are living card games, and that is Lord of the Rings living card game by Fantasy Flight, and Fantasy Flight makes a lot of those. Fantasy Flight Games has a whole slew of different themed living card games. They start the same way. You buy a beginner set. For the Lord of the Rings, it's a big box. I've showed it before in the past. Just talked about it. It hasn't been a featured game. And then, instead of buying booster packs, you buy what are almost the equivalent of expansions. You buy a set of cards, and all of those cards have new scenarios that build the story and new cards to strengthen your deck. So you start with the starter deck, and when you play, instead of playing, another main difference, not on all of them, but definitely on Lord of the Rings versus Pokemon and My Little Pony, instead of playing against a competitor, you're playing cooperatively against the story. Especially in Lord of the Rings, it's cooperative, or you can play by yourself, but you're not playing against the other person. You're playing with the other person against the deck. And so when you buy expansions, they sell some that are a series of little boxes of of new decks, and they have a new story in them, and then they have cards to boost your deck. And then sometimes they'll put out a box, like a little box with the same thing. More stories to play through, more scenarios to beat, and more cards, more heroes, more events, all those kinds of things that you build your deck with. So as I talk about things, that's the difference between a collectible or trading card game and a living card game. When you buy a living card game, all of those packs, additional packs you buy, have the exact same cards in them. So if you buy, whatever box it is, every box has the exact same set of cards in it. And then you buy the next box, and everyone who buys that box gets the same set of cards. We started My Little Pony, the collectible card game, the weekend it came out. We played a little bit. We were a little bit frustrated. I made the assumption that it was because we were new to it, and it was different. We sat down to play again this weekend because I put it on our 10-10 and 2015 list, and we hated it. I played against the Girl Geekling, and we didn't have fun at all. It was like hard, and it was frustrating, and it felt like they were trying so hard not to be Pokemon that they made things unnecessarily complicated. So, daughter and I were not in tears, but we were definitely not having fun. We finished, we marked it. And then the husband got online and started reading boards and stuff. And apparently, if you're playing with the original cards, like the first little theme decks that came out and the original rules, they have tweaked it a lot since then. And to really enjoy this game, apparently you really need to customize your deck. The very first decks that you bought that came in boxes like this that said theme deck and they were different pony themes were not very well balanced. So, there are some brand new ones out, and I can't remember what they're called. We're going to pick them up this weekend when we're in Lubbock. There's new Magic stuff coming out this weekend, too. We don't play Magic enough to buy all the new stuff, but we need to keep that in mind when we go to the game shop, that there will be lots of people there buying Magic stuff. I'll have to maybe find a dip in their business. When are all the college boys still asleep? Our game shop is largely populated by college boys and girls. I went to this same game shop when I was a college girl, and I had lots of fun. They mostly played Magic. I played a little bit too, but not much. I mostly just went and sat and watched. Again, I was very shy. Painfully shy. So, but there's some new sets out. So, apparently this game gets a lot better with customization. So, we are going to work on building some new decks. And later in the year, after we played it a couple more times with customizable decks, I will let you know if my opinion changes. I hated to put up pictures and say, oh my goodness, we're having so much fun playing My Little Pony, and then not have fun and not say, hey, because My Little Pony is very popular. And I think it says 10 plus, definitely 10 and up. It's pretty complicated, I think. And we play Lord of the Rings, and it's like super complicated. And I found this frustratingly complicated. So if I find it frustratingly complicated, I can't imagine someone picking it up as their first card game with their little 8-year-old and be all excited to play and find it to be frustrating. I will say that even if we do not continue to play it after this year, after we get our 10 plays in, we will definitely keep collecting the cards because the cards are awesome and they're fun and we love them. So, my first review of My Little Pony, the collectible card game, it's not very fun. But I say that with the ability to go back and change my mind after we have played it some more, which hopefully I will. And if we do and we find out that it is awesome, then I can tell you all about it then and tell you how we customized our deck and where we got all that kind of stuff. So that, I think, is all. Lord willing and the creek don't rise, I will see you guys one more time before the end of the month. Bye.